allowed me to suggest this, and we are able to do it. So my name is Ashpreet Kaur. I am originally from India. I have done my master's in environmental science from India, and I am currently pursuing my PhD, which is researching zero waste factors leading to more waste diversion and minimization in higher education institutions. And I am pursuing it at University of Florida, and I'm in my 4th year now. I currently defended my PhD proposal and also passed my qualifying exam. So I'm officially PhD candidate now. And I would like Richard and Amanda to introduce themselves. And also we'll start with Ronald first to introduce himself and ISWA in general, so that all our participants know a little bit about our organization. Ronald?
Thank you, Ashpreet. So welcome to everyone. It's fantastic that you've taken the time on a Saturday to join and learn with us. We are very privileged to have two phenomenal speakers, Richard and Amanda, with us today. Just a little bit about who we are and what we do as the Young Professionals Group of the International Solid Waste Association. Our number is around about 130 people at the moment, from people all around the world. These are members of ISWA who are younger than 35. We are an organization which organizes many things, but with the primary objectives of allowing networking, allowing the expression of a variety of skills within our waste management industry. But we allow this to unfold in a number of ways and a number of working groups, which we like to call them. At the moment, we have the one you are currently experiencing called our online discussions and meetings. We also have a communications working group, a regional and local chapters working group. We have a mentorship program, careers development. We have a research and innovation working group. So there's plenty to get involved in should any of you wish to join us and wish to have the opportunity to practice such skills in what I would definitely like to call a safe environment. This year, 2022, I am the chair of the Young Professionals Group, and for me, it's just a real pleasure that you've decided to spend some time with us today. So I believe next on the program will be a brief introduction by our two speakers, and I'll hand back to Ashpreet to guide us.
Thank you, Ronald. So Richard and Amanda are our two speakers today. So I'll start with Richard to introduce himself first. Richard.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Anthony. My mother was born in Moldova. My father was born in Cyprus, and I was born in Los Angeles. So pretty much international. I'm the chair of the Zero Waste International Alliance. I'm on the board of directors of Zero Waste USA. I'm a founder of the California Resource Recovery Association. And then, not to say least, I am a director in Zero Waste San Diego. I've been doing this for 50 years. I started Earth Day 1970. We ended up running a recycling center at the college, and then I went to work as in an engineering firm where we were basically designing landfills. And as a recycler, I was very handy to these engineers who had no clue. In those days, there was a Clean Water Act and a Clean Air Act, but RCRA didn't come until 1976. And so this firm that I work with was helping the EPA actually write the new rules. And so in the middle of it, did a lot of recycling, did curbside setups, and then I kept winning jobs, and he kept hiring engineers. And I wasn't getting the jobs I was getting. So I ended up, California passed a law requiring county plans, and county started looking for coordinators. I got the job in Fresno, and I had a garbage for 500,000 people at 30, and then San Diego. And Since 1999, I've been a consultant, but in that same time, and I'll finish, in that same time, we evolved. We had a business and a career and a trade, and we also set up different associations that reached out to the point where we have become international. And the Zero Waste International Alliance.org represents now, we have half a dozen countries that are now national affiliates, like New Zealand and Italy and Canada and Brazil and Costa Rica. We have organizational affiliates, local groups like Zero Waste San Diego that we're all going to try to apply the principles that I'm going to talk about in my speech about a new way of managing discards through zero waste. Thanks for the opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you, Richard. And I'll invite Amanda to introduce herself now.
Thanks, Ashpreet. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Waddell. I'm in Gainesville, Florida, in the United States. I work as a zero waste educator, advocate, and consultant. I'm real happy and proud to be doing the work I do. We have a community group here in Gainesville, Florida called Zero Waste Gainesville. I'm co-chair of that. I work at a creative reuse center called the Repurposed Project. So I'm their director of zero waste. I also work with Zero Waste USA with Rick and as a zero waste consultant. So there's definitely a lot of work to be done in the zero waste world, and I'm really proud to be part of that. And Ashpreet and I also overlap, and we do some work together as well here in Gainesville.
Yes, exciting to see Gainesville going towards zero waste. So now we will start the presentations. I'm gonna pull up the presentation for Richard, and then we can go from there. Okay, I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah, you got half of it. There's the other half. So, hi, thank you. I'll just say next for the next, but not yet. Not yet. Yeah, good. Thank you. Zero waste approach. Basically, let me say this, that as I did my work in the engineering company, I realized that we were looking for landfills. My job was to find out stuff that wasn't going to go in the landfill. And as they made these deals, because they were 20-year contracts, they would say, how much waste is going to be there in 20 years? I'm going, what? So over that last 50 years, I've probably done dozens and dozens of sorts. In fact, we did the first protocol in California for Solid Waste Management Board at the time. And we've been doing it ever since. And we can have a good feel of from the bottom up what's going on at the landfill. In fact, in both Fresno and San Diego, I ran landfills. So the Zero Waste International Alliance basically is a combination of people around the world. English is our second language, where we actually have now 4 or 5 countries in Latin America, Costa Rica, Brazil, Uruguay, Peru, who are part of the alliance. And on third Friday, we actually have Spanish presentations, all handled in Spanish, the same global call that we have earlier. And bottom line, we're netting people together because it is holistic. It is a planetary problem and we can look at the next slide that we're dealing with. And this is not that complicated, folks. Actually, I give the credit to William McDonough in his book, Cradle to Cradle. When I teach my classes in the university, it's one of the assignments. And what McDonough is an architect, we realize that all wasted discards, no, I'm not going to use the word waste, it'll be wasted or wasting discards are either organic or they're technical. So the green side of this butterfly is the Ellen MacArthur Foundation chart. I think it's wonderful. It really explains what we need to do on an international basis and what we are doing. The green side is organic, the blue side is technical. Technical means steel or iron or material that can be reused and recycled. On the organic side, it's the same thing, but it's not. It's organic, it decomposes. what we want to tell you is from my experience in sorting garbage, I know that when you add yard trimmings and food discards and some dirty paper like napkins and things like that, which are good bulking agents, and wood and dirt, which typically are the organic discards from a community, that's 50%. It's an organic compost. It's to be used locally for farming to grow food for your community. It's a natural. And so we're saying now as we go out in the world, go after the green material, get it out, because the other stuff is paper and glass and metal and plastic that can be melted down or hydropulp into a feedstock for a product and make new material. So look at the green side on this, and you'll see that, you know, the first thing you're going to do is, well, I got food. Oh, I'm going to feed people. And maybe the edible food needs to go to pantries where homeless are. That's kind of in California now, the law. After that, then there's feeding animals. Take it to the animal feed. We got dairies that are using, you know, discards from, you know, any group that's making large amount of materials and packaging has a organic discard. These can go to pig farmers. Pig farmers have always been the garbage disposals of the world historically. Absolutely, the garbage men would, the farmers would pick up the food from the community. That's how garbage collection started. Feed pigs and sell the pigs back to the community. It was a nice closed circle kind of thing. Feed animals and then feed the lands with composting. And we can start with the windrows outside, inexpensive. You can turn them, or you can do them static with air injection. And then at the more tougher ones, the things that you really worried about, so you take it to a digester. I say an aerobic digester in vessel. That's what we're building out here. And then ultimately the anaerobic digester, which I think is better for sewage and not necessarily, but that's the cycle. And then it all feeds back into fertilizer, new crops, and then the circle continues. And the same thing on the other side, on the blue side, it's reuse, it's source reduction. How am I to tell you that you should have less? I mean, I live in the bulk of gluttony here. I have more than I ever want. I could walk the streets of my town and find everything to furnish a house. I really could. So cut back on what you're doing if you can on consumption. Buy stuff that can be reused, repaired, refurbished. And that's the next one, is repair it. That's the second part of it. The third one is to refurbish it, make it into something else that you can use. And then finally, take it back apart and recycle it back into the circle, close the circle. Okay, so what happens when you look at it by the charts, and again, composition studies and market studies that I've done over the last 50 years, is that 90% of all the discards out there can be recycled easily. They meet the global market. 10% are legacy stuff, or things that are mixed composition, like paper, metal, glass together, or something like that. That can't. I don't want to burn lead painted wood, and I don't want to compost it. So if I can get all the organics out of the landfill, I have a dry tomb in which I can put legacy waste in, and I have just expanded my ability to handle my wasted discards by about 90%. So we say, okay, fine, no energy recovery, absolutely not. That's a polluter. It's a waste of resources. Yes, a landfill without organics would be the last possible way to do it. But what we would also say is look upstream and say, okay, what's the biggest part of that 10%? Oh my God, it's diapers. I'm saying sometimes 4 to 6%. That's a huge amount in Los Angeles. Why would you put that in a landfill? So this is something where you have to make the product go to redesign. But let me get into my slides, because this is the technical information. Now I'm going to give you a little bit motivational stuff. Next slide. Ellen MacArthur Foundation, that's closed circle economy. So key when we talk about zero waste is one, Einstein, stuff exists, okay? We're not going to argue how it got here. Stuff exists, okay? It's there, and it combines into more stuff. And the thing is, there is no way, okay? So your mile away is your desert or your house or your backyard. I mean, come on. And then finally, what you're using today without thinking about it, especially on a planet with finite resources, is your children's dinner tomorrow. So, okay, fine. Number one key for zero waste is source separation. Use the eyes and the hands to make the distinction of what's there. In the United States, we are going with 3 sorts. Now they're doing 4 sorts, maybe sometimes. The blue bin being mixed recyclables, the green bin being mixed organics, and the gray bin meaning the legacy waste. Sometimes they want to separate the paper from the metal, so they'll have a split container or another one for glass and metal together so it doesn't get in the paper. In Italy, they collect individual items door to door. In India, Kerala, where I saw the vendors come door to door and get the stuff, people handle the organics. It's really up to you on how you organize this, but it must be organized, and source separation is the key. Next slide. So the key is that this one is that we need to design products for the environment. Upstream, there's no doubt about this, that you all see the value of the recyclables in the marketplace. In fact, in a lot of places in the world where there's a lot of PET, there's a battle between those who want to buy it from you for energy and those who want to buy it for you to make plastic again. And I say the recycle option is the preferable option. And so we need to make containers and all the big issues, single-use products designed for the environment. So in the old days, we had these pop-top cans, and what would happen is the top would come off and we throw it on the ground. In a lot of countries I have visited and toured, stuff just ends up on the ground. And it used to be food for the animals that walked around, and now it's plastic. And what we found in all our beaches were all these pop-tops cutting our feet. Somebody figured out that you could redesign this thing into something else. What's the next slide look like? And so what we did is we looked at nature as the tool and designed a pop-top that went back in, because that's the model. When you look at what we're living, when we try to fight nature, we'll lose. You can't beat Mother Nature or the environment. And like I say, it's the biosphere. The biosphere brings us all together. We destroy the biosphere, there's no air on the planet, we're all dead, okay? So warm out the planet, kill the biosphere, throw chlorofluorocarbons in there, make holes in the biosphere. We're killing ourselves. So we have to change our basic habits to basically breathe in and out with the planet. Nature creates oxygen. We create carbon dioxide. We work together and the planet grows. We need to organize a little better, and we'll have enough. There's no doubt in my mind that in 20 years, we'll have resources for everybody on the planet. Whether you could get the food to people on the planet with those resources will be another issue. And if we're not swimming underwater, that's another issue as well. So take a good look at nature and try to emulate it. I mean, I had a student who provided papers to burn waste for energy in Saudi Arabia. And I said, well, okay, but do you really need energy? You're sitting on all that oil. What you really need is dirt, don't you? Wouldn't you rather take the organics and make soil out of it? Doesn't that make more sense in terms of the environment? So nature's our model. We try, when we start to think about that, the last piece on this one is that, don't you tell me that this little snow beetle is going to become extinct because you're going to put a landfill or an oil well there. How could we take a life away from the planet on the grounds that we need something that's going to destroy the planet? Let's think about that. Nature's the model. That's how we're going to guide. Let me know if I'm talking too long, Ash. You know how I am. Next slide. That's the other piece, folks. There is no way. Back in the 80s, I located the first double line landfill west of the Mississippi in Fresno. And my last promise to them was that, you know, that would be the last one. We can't keep on doing this anymore. Well, I got offered a job to find a landfill for nuclear waste. I'm going, no, there's no way, there's no place on this planet that you could put nuclear waste that's got a lifetime of 1 million years and it's toxic. There is no way. There is no way. You throw it in the river? Come on, folks. That's not a way. It's in the river. My God, it's drinking water. The amount of single-use products ending up in the waterways in the world, it's astounding. It's horrible. So it's really part of our requirement. It's in the Bible. It's in the Talmud. It's in Muslim belief. It's all part of the Old Testament. You take care of your own discards. You're responsible for your materials. God didn't say it's okay to waste. Nobody said that. It's not even in the law that it's okay to waste. So why throw it down and screw up your neighbor's stuff? Really, think about that. All right, let's go to the next one. So the unintended consequences of, okay, well, we're never going to regulate this one because people have the right to do what they want. No, I'm sorry. So our right to do what we want ends up in the belly of this albatross. One of our campaigns that we've been leading, we've been following this marine debris thing from one of my good acquaintances in France, actually, is Captain Charlie Moore. And the stories he's told me and the things he showed on is absolutely astounding. And the amount of single-use things that were designed not for recycling, not for composting, but designed to throw in the landfill, burn in the incinerator, throw it out in the environment, end up in the ocean. And with these birds, they live in the middle of the Pacific. There's hundreds of thousands of them. They live on the Midway Atoll, and all this trash from all the coastal cities around the Pacific Ocean circulates through the water streams and sort of ends up just below the Midway Atoll, Hawaii. And this stuff floats in where these birds roost. Well, the caps look like krill. So the birds eat the caps and kill the birds. And we're seeing so much wildlife that is being destroyed at a time when, animals are being extinct every day. I mean, we're wiping out the biological diversity of the planet. So it's an unintended consequences. It was never thought of that, oh my God, all this oil spill is going to end up in the ocean and kill the fish population. All this plastic is going to end up in the belly of a whale, or all these whatever. And then we also once thought that the dilution was the solution for pollution. It's not. There is no way. And the unintended consequences is we're killing our environment. All right, next one. So, okay, I've sort of, these are our friends, the Albatross, and these are the plastic stuff. Now, I will say a lot of this is fishing gear and fishing nets that break off and end up in there. But you can see they're living right on this plastic. Now, since we started our campaign, and that's important because what I see now with the telephone and the ability to talk as English is our second language, we have the ability to organize. And we said to Charlie, this marine debris, what are we going to do? These albatrosses are dying. He says, well, if they could connect the cap on all the plastic bottles, I mean, if they stop putting the plastic bottles in the ocean, that would be better. But if they could be connected, then the albatross wouldn't think they were shrimp and wouldn't do it. So we started a campaign. It was Lease the Lid, and now it's Connect the Cap. But and we wrote letters to the big companies, and we got a petition that had over almost 100,000 names on it. In Europe, actually, the EU has said all caps have to be tethered by 2024. And now if you buy a Coke or any of those drinks, it says connect the cap. They didn't connect it yet. We're not done with this one, but it's what I'm saying is our abilities as consumers in this world, on this planet, we can redirect, so we can design how things are made and things are used. And really, that's the only really power we really have, is the power of our dollars. We really do. So we don't buy their products, they go under, folks. That's just the way it is. Next slide. So, and I think this is the last one, I think. I'm going to talk more than 10 minutes. So what we said, here's the Lease the Lid. And, here's, it's a simple, if if 80% of those bottle caps that are out there come from water bottles, there's no carbonation, there's no problem. Here's an example of a container that has a lid tethered to it. We can do that. So let me just say that as resource managers, this is resources, okay? 10% of what you are handling is really heavily wasted resources. These resources, if it was convenient, if it was available, people would do it. And we've seen this around the world. And when Amanda makes her presentation, she'll see how this works on the ground. I thank you for your attention. I think that's it, right?
Yes, that was the last slide. Thank you very much, Rick, for your presentation. And very informative. And I think now Amanda will talk more about how zero waste is working on the community. So I'll invite Amanda to come and present her presentation.
Great. I will share my screen. All right. Rick, that was a great presentation. And Rick really gave a broad overview with some specifics on their campaigns. And I'm going to get a little bit more specific of some of the day-to-day stuff that we do in the zero waste world. So I'm going to talk a little bit about policy and planning. So you guys know all about me. I think that the unique thing about me and Rick actually is that we both have community organizations where we work as volunteers to get the work done. And it really is important to have those community groups working on the ground in your own community. But I used to work as an ecologist for many years, and my connection to nature and love of animals really motivates the work that I do. And I think that that's really important as well. So Rick mentioned the Zero Waste International Alliance, and with all of the professional work that we do, we follow and use their definition of zero waste. So I will read that to you. It is the conservation of all resources by means of responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of products, packaging, and materials without burning, and with no discharges to land, water, or air that threaten the environment or human health. So we follow that definition throughout all of the zero waste work we do, whether it's on the ground, in our own community, or with communities across the country or around the world. And you can find this definition and more at zwia.org. It's a wealth of information that Rick and others have produced there. So like Rick mentioned, nature is our model. I grew up in Florida and I absolutely love the manatees. I go visit them as often as I can. So this picture really inspires me to keep doing the work I do. This is a picture from a state park I visit every year to see the manatees. And we can just look to nature for our solutions to the problem of so much stuff being thrown away. So, and nothing in nature is wasted. So nature just provides us with all the answers. They reuse resources, they cycle nutrients, and it's just a really efficient system that we're trying to create. And there is no way, so all of the stuff that we throw away goes somewhere. So for Gainesville and Alachua County, the stuff we throw away goes to a landfill that's about 33 miles north of Gainesville. And I have visited that landfill and gotten a tour. And it's called the New River Landfill, and there is a river right beside the landfill. So the landfill has ecosystems right beside it, animals and plants, and also people living next door to it. So there's really is no way. And as a zero waste professional, we manage resources, not waste. So we think of everything in terms of resources, and that also helps us frame the work that we do. So zero waste really is aspirational, but our goal through product redesign and upstream management of resources is to have everything be reusable, recyclable, or compostable. And that mimics nature, and that's how we can keep all of these resources in use over and over. So how do we achieve zero waste? Well, we really need to move from a linear system. So even though our system does have some loops that bring resources back into use, for the most part, we're in a linear system where we extract resources from the earth, We create products, we consume the products and packaging, and then we dispose of them. But instead, we need systems like this that are more circular, just like in nature. And what we really want is the upstream redesign, just like Rick talked about. And if we have that, that will solve a whole lot of the problems. But during use, we need to use products that are reusable, recyclable, and compostables. And you know what? We need to capture all of those resources. If we can capture them through reuse recovery parks and we can sort the resources, we can get them back into production. So when new stuff is being made, new packaging is being produced, the stuff we've already used, those resources can be the feedstock to create new stuff. And then we consume them again. And when we consume things, we need to do as much as possible to keep those items in use as long as possible through reuse and the sharing economy, repairing, all of those things. And if we can keep doing this over and over, we'll have fewer resources going to the landfill, and we'll need to extract fewer raw resources to bring into these cycles. So that's really our goal. So zero waste can really be a solution. We need to talk about overconsumption. That's a really personal issue, and not everybody overconsumes, but it has to be part of the conversation. Zero waste creates jobs. Zero waste really creates efficient systems of resource use and reuse. And that's really what's important. When we're throwing stuff away, that's an inefficient system. We want efficient systems. Focus upstream. Zero waste is part of climate change mitigation and culture change. Culture change is a big part of what we do, because we want people to realize that everything they use and eat and sit on and look at, it comes from resources from the earth. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the work I do with the Repurposed Project and Zero Waste Gainesville, how that overlaps to create a policy here locally in Gainesville. So Repurposed Project is a physical store. It's a creative reuse store, and we sell just about anything you can think of. Bulky items, salvaged building materials, knickknacks, bottle caps, fabric, office supplies, electronics, tools, anything you can think of. And all that stuff comes in from the community. They donate those items, and we process them, get them back on the floor, and resell them to the community. And like I said, I don't work in the store day to day, but I work out in the community. So I work with schools, and I work with small businesses, and I work with our city and county staff and elected officials. And then, also this week is the last day of Zero Waste Week locally. So this is something we've done. This is the third year in a row, and it's 7 days of education, sometimes activities, although less because of COVID. But last night we had a repurposed art show and clothing swap, which was in person. And this is a collaborative event where we want the community to know what's going on locally with zero waste. And one of the things we brought to everybody's attention is the policy that Repurposed Project and Zero Waste Gainesville, we've been working on with the city. So Zero Waste Gainesville, we're a community group, and there's just 3 of us, and we're just 3 volunteers. So everything we do through Zero Waste Gainesville is a volunteer effort. And one of the major things we've been working on for over 2 years is this upcoming zero waste ordinance, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So Zero Waste Gainesville was formed in 2017 by Nina Bhattacharya, who's pictured there. So we advocate for our city to work towards zero waste, and we've been doing it for 4.5 years now. But the main thing we've been working on for the past 2 years is this zero waste ordinance. So it's 2 years of work, and it's really collaborative. So we have tried to get as many organizations and different sectors of the community involved in this as much as possible. But Repurposed Project and Zero Waste Gainesville really have been driving the components of the ordinance, but we bring in the private sector to get input on, would this work? How would you feel about this? And of course, city staff really crafts the ordinance, like the language, and then the city commissioners, they're going to vote on it. But they've been involved for over 2 years now as well. So it's a big collaborative effort, and collaboration was our theme for Zero Waste Week this week. So we focused on all of the different sectors that are involved to create zero waste. So here are a few components of this ordinance that is not passed yet, but if it is passed, we'll have a lot of new local laws that will help us become a stronger zero waste community and be able to divert more of these resources from the landfill. And one of the biggest part of this ordinance is the food section, the food component. Sometimes we call it a comprehensive organics program. Lately, we've been calling the food waste reduction and recovery section of the ordinance. But the two big sections of this is that food generating businesses would follow the food recovery hierarchy that the US EPA set forward. And the thing about this is that the restaurants and the caterers and the grocery stores, they would have to figure out systems to get their edible food to feed hungry people, feed animals, and then compost it. So right now we have a few restaurants who already do this voluntarily because it's the right thing to do. We also have some grocery stores who donate their food, but there's no system in place. There's no coordination with our local food banks. It's not enforced. So if this ordinance passes, that will be enforced. Also in this ordinance, multifamily units, meaning like apartment complexes, and single family residents, like people who live in houses, they would have be required to source separate their food scraps for composting. So we would have some sort of curbside system for people who live in homes, and a dumpster type or cart type system where the food scraps for people who live in apartments would be able to go in there instead of going in with the landfill items. So this is a really big deal, and we hope that this section gets passed. Also in the ordinance, we have a lot of little sections related to zero waste, but one of the bigger ones is our commercial recycling update. This is not very exciting, but in Gainesville, we've always had commercial businesses be required to recycle. But there's been some issues with it where it's not enforced. It could be updated. So that part was updated, and not very exciting, but very important, definitely. Also in the ordinance, zero waste events. So we would have events, people who want to have events in Gainesville, like festivals or items like that are, they would have to put forth a plan to show us that they're diverting resources from the landfill. So have to set up recycling and composting systems. We also are going to have a ban on expanded polystyrene, which is a plastic number 6, and other single-use plastics on city properties and events. That's one we've been pushing really hard to have them do. They're also going to have a municipal zero waste procurement policy. So meaning what the city government buys day to day will have to fall under scrutiny based on this procurement policy. And we're going to have a ban on glitter, releasing balloons, and plastic confetti. So nobody knows how that would be enforced, but that is in this ordinance as well. Of course, releasing balloons, maybe that's easy to enforce, but people won't be allowed to use glitter and plastic confetti. They're both plastic and polluting, but that's in the ordinance. The last big thing that's in the ordinance is it has to do with reuse. Accessories upon request is also known as #SkipTheStuff. This was put forth, the specific campaign of Skip the Stuff was put forth by the Upstream Solutions, which is a nonprofit in the United States. The accessories upon request, what that means is that when you get to-go food, the restaurants won't automatically be able to put in the plastic utensils or napkins or ketchup packets, any of those extras. So they can't put those in. If you want those items with your to-go food, you can still get it. You just have to ask for it. So this is accessories upon request is part of a larger foodware ordinance that we didn't think we could pass all of those components, but we thought we could pass this one small section and work towards the other. So right now this is in this large zero waste ordinance. And then we got reuse in the ordinance, and the only section we got in so far is that off-campus housing, meaning apartment complexes in Gainesville, they would have to create a plan to capture all of the stuff at the big move-in, move-out times in Gainesville, which is a lot of April and May, and then July and August. Normally at that time, the apartment complexes get extra dumpsters basically to come to their apartment complex. So the students and the young people can just throw stuff away when they're moving in and move out. But instead, they'll have to really coordinate with the local thrift stores to have them bring their trucks and capture all these reusable items and keep them in use instead of going to the landfill. So that's a really big deal. We're excited about that. The last section I'm going to talk about is the zero waste consulting work. Rick and I are on several projects together, and when we do this consulting work, we're known as the Zero Waste Associates. And basically what we do is we create zero waste plans for communities that want to know how they can reach a certain diversion level. And basically we go in and we do an assessment on what they have now, what their opportunities for diversion are currently, what they don't have, so the voids, what opportunities could they have. And then we do a lot of stakeholder interviews, meaning we talk to the people in the community, we see what they want, and then we write a plan. We say, well, and then we give them some initiatives in the plan, and we say, well, these 15 items or these 20 things, these ideas, we think will get you to your diversion goals or to zero waste. So when we do this work, we use the Zero Waste USA tools. So we have a lot of tools that Rick and others in Zero Waste USA created these tools over the years. And so we have a community zero waste planning checklist. So that identifies what they have in their community. We have a service opportunity analysis also that points out the voids, like what services they don't have. Like a lot of communities still don't have composting sites for food scraps. That's often a void we find. We do a divertibility analysis. We try to figure out what their current diversion is. So a community often is throwing a lot of stuff away to a landfill, but they probably already have some recycling and some diversion going on. So they might have 20% diversion or 25% diversion, but they want to get to maybe 90%. So it's good to know where they are now. We also do a market commodity estimate. So we try to estimate the value of what they're sending to a landfill. So all of the reusable goods, like the durable goods we talked about that the Repurposed Project captures, you know, we can put a monetary value on that. And it's often a very high value on couches and building supplies and other stuff like that. And the same thing on recyclables. When they're throwing paper away or plastic or metal, we can assign a value on that. The same thing with food scraps and other items like that. So we try to show them that there's value in what they're throwing away to their landfill or incinerator. And then from there, we with the community's involvement, we come up with a list of initiatives. Those initiatives are policies, programs, or infrastructures, and they really work together to create a zero waste community. So several years ago, again, Zero Waste USA worked with the US EPA to create this tool called Managing and Transforming Waste Streams. And what this tool has, it is a list of 100 initiatives. So again, these are policies, programs, and infrastructure that communities would need to work towards zero waste. So communities don't need all 100, but it's kind of like you can pick and choose. And the good thing about this tool, anybody can use it. It's on the internet for anybody to look through and to use, but they have case studies, they have examples of where they were used, they have examples of how they are used, and it's a really great tool for us when we want to go back and say, oh, what did they do in Broomfield that worked so well? Well, Broomfield might have an example in here, and you know, Gainesville, Florida is in here. They're one of the examples under Pay As You Throw, which is a system of having different garbage cart sizes for your community. So this tool is available as a list. So it just lists 1 through 50 and then 51 through 100. So you can just look at them all and read them. This tool is also available in a spreadsheet format. So you can click around for some of the things that you need, and then it figures out or gives you the results of what you would want. So it's a really great tool that we really do use when we do community planning for a city or county. And this really wraps up my presentation. This is a graphic I use for a lot of the local work I do here in Gainesville. It just kind of sums up what zero waste communities strive for, what we can produce if we create zero waste communities, and the benefits of zero waste. And I think that there are so many reasons to work towards zero waste, and I really enjoy what I do. So thank you. You guys are welcome to reach out to me if you have questions after the presentation. You can email me through my Repurposed Project work email, or you might want to check out Repurposed Project or Zero Waste Gainesville. We have a lot of great stuff on our websites as well. So I will stop sharing now.
Thank you, Amanda. I was just listing in the chat website to zerowasteusa.org. So I took a class with them, I think it was last year, with Zero Waste US, and it was very informative for me, and the tools are really good to analyze what the existing situation of like a city or wherever you want to implement it. And then the tools provide the recommendations as, okay, this is what best can work for the community. So it's a great tool, and I really recommend joining their class. I think you can find information on zerowasteusa.org, or you can also go to the LinkedIn. There is a class, I think every 6 months, not really sure. But yeah, get in touch with them. So while people are putting questions in the chat box, please feel free to put your questions. I will start with asking a question, and it's for both of you. As per your experience working with waste management in general, so going towards zero waste, what do you think are one of the biggest sectors which could be worked on and which can lead to more waste diversion? So I'll start with Amanda, and then Rick can follow up.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So I think I might know the answer that Rick will give too, but so when we look at waste composition studies, and when we look at the waste streams in our own community and communities we work with, the stuff that can be reused, the durable stuff, that stuff takes up a lot of space in the landfills. It's not often the biggest part of a waste composition, but it's very valuable. And there are so many good reasons to keep this durable stuff out of the landfill. It helps with climate change. It provides low-cost items to community members. But I would say the building materials, the couches and other furniture and desks and appliances, all of the stuff we see at both of the stores in Gainesville. We have a second store, Reuse Planet. The day-to-day stuff, it's amazing to me what people buy from the Repurposed Project. A lot of times they buy all of the stuff there to be used for the same use, meaning they might buy a desk to be a desk, or a hammer to be a hammer, but they also go in there for the creative reuse. So they get odds and ends, and they use it for completely different things. So I think the durable goods, although we do have some non-durable goods or less durable goods at Repurposed Project, but I think that's a huge part that we should be focusing on. Communities don't track reuse and those kind of items very easily or very well, not like the recyclable items or the compostable items. So we also have a void there with data as far as trying to estimate how much your diversion rate is or recycling rate. We often don't know the part that reuse plays into it. So I've always wanted to tackle that, but that's a big deal, and we really don't track reuse very well at all.
Actually, we've pretty much ignored reuse and repair in terms of implementing recycling across the board, and reuse and repair are really important. And the other part is that when you look at the value of materials that are going out, the reusables are half. I mean, it's usually a huge number. But to answer your question, Ash, I really think that if you want to make something happen, you take the organics out. You get all the food and all the yard waste and all the dirty paper and do a separate collection. What's that going to do is going to free up all these other technical materials, your durables and your paper and metal, for recovery. Once the organics are out of it, the wet, the smell, the putricity, the rot is gone, and that's really important in terms of how we do this. And we've been doing this forever. I mean, typically it's a cultural thing to understand that you feed animals or you can compost this material. I mean, no farm hauls out organics. They compost it on their property and build up their soil. So that's the one part. And the other part I want to throw out is that in that recent meeting in Scotland, the scientists and the delegates came together and said, global warming is a lot of problem is the methane that's entering the land. And methane is like 29, depending on how you look at 29 to 70% more toxic than carbon dioxide. And so we should focus internationally on eliminating methane. Well, the biggest generator of man-made methane is the landfills. And the organics in the landfills decompose and create the methane that goes into the atmosphere, and also creates a leachate that gets into your drinking water. That neither one are good. So for internationally, we want to stop methane in the atmosphere and try to cool the planet down, one, and two, capture that organics for local use for local farms to feed each other. I mean, as we have the supply chain problem, if you had your own organical soil amendments, you could grow your own food. That wouldn't be one of your issues. So I think, yes, durable goods, absolutely for the money, but organics frees them all.
Definitely. I think organics is something which we can easily capture and also divert.
Just for the expert who people want to challenge me, I mean, compostable organics. I recognize that rubber and plastic and textiles are organic, but we're talking about compostable organics.
Right. So I have a couple of questions on incentives in my chat, just trying to see how I can put them all together. So is setting up a zero waste system cost effective, or is it costly? And again, it's for both of you. What kind of cost incurred while setting a zero waste program, and also what kind of incentives are available from the government, which citizens can use to kind of make money out of it? Any examples you might want to share about it, that would be great.
So in my studies, and there've been hundreds of them, and in my own operational experience of 20 years of running programs, I don't need any more money. Not really. I need to be able to use the money I have to do the redesign on the collection system. You're never going to have more garbage, so you don't need more trucks. You just need to have some trucks doing this and some trucks doing that. Sometimes there's some facilities that have to go in that, but typically as a public works projects, there are allocations for land development, for transfer stations, and we want to make these into resource recovery parks. That's kind of how we want to go with this stuff. On the other part, on the jobs, just think about how many jobs are created. I mean, there's one job at the landfill, but there could be hundreds of jobs in reuse and recycling. So that was always my idea in the very end. When you get back to dismantling recycling, materials for recycling, that's a job the homeless we could do easily, that we could provide them a labor source and for food and subsistence. But yet, sometimes if you want to put in a waste energy facility, I put out a couple $100 million on that one. But reorganizing your trucks, and then finally, number one for me, I've taken all your thunder, Amanda, sorry, is new rules. Prior to World War II, most cities required source separation of materials. Why? They couldn't get the resources, they need them. So they, you separated the organics for the pig farmers and the paper and metal and glass. After the war, we got into put it in a hole and bury it. Not a good idea. So this is what we're redesigning. So we're going to use the same money to change the system, but we have to make the rules change. And that's what you talk about, cultural change. If it's convenient and available, people will do it. I don't know if you've ever been to Tokyo. My God, it's a big city and it's clean. There's no litter on the ground and there's no trash cans anywhere except in the food generation areas and their recycling bins. Hallelujah.
Yeah, I can add to that, but that was great, Rick. So a few things that we're doing locally, when we first started about talking about zero waste 4 years ago, we immediately had people calling our city staff and city commission saying, oh, are you guys going to be need a composter? Are you guys going to be composting food scraps? You know, we can take food scraps. So we had a community composter start a business, and we've had another more on the lines of a commercial composter, although they're not huge. They've been talking to our city staff and city commissioners, and even me wanting meetings with the locals on the ground doing zero waste work about also moving their operation or opening a new one in Gainesville, because they see the opportunity to expand their business, and basically they want to make money. They're a private industry, but they see the opportunity with zero waste because it does create jobs and it expands. So that person's been talking to us for a while and they haven't made the big leap. But if we have this zero waste ordinance, if it does get passed, then over about 2 to 3 years, it'll have a phase-in approach where more and more businesses and residents will be composting their food scraps, meaning source separating them. So we'll need those community composters, or maybe this small scale industrial composter, to come into our community and set up the infrastructure. So when people hear about zero waste, they hear about opportunity to create a business. The other thing that's happened is, since we've been talking about zero waste, I have a friend who owns a restaurant. So from the beginning, she was like, oh, what does zero waste mean? You know, she asked us and she followed our organization, and she learned all she could. And she realized as a restaurant owner how much they had been wasting, and all of the opportunities to be more sustainable. And she's an entrepreneur. So since then, so 2 years ago, she opened a store called Life on Plastic. And basically what that is a store that has personal care products and bulk food with little to no packaging and definitely no plastic. So she saw that as a business opportunity because our local town of Gainesville was starting this zero waste movement. So she knew more and more people would be looking for these sustainable items. And she's been in business for over 2 years and still going strong. So that's an opportunity. Another thing that we pushed last year that our county did is they're setting aside some funds at some funds in the tipping fee at our transfer station. So all of the waste that comes into the transfer station from the private haulers and the self haulers, they have to pay per ton. So a little bit of that money is being set aside for zero waste initiatives. So that money will be set aside, and this program should start this year in 2022. So the county will have these funds, and they will take proposals basically from nonprofits, from for-profits, to create education. Maybe they could buy a piece of equipment, like the Repurposed Project needs a forklift. You know, maybe we could ask the county to pay for that because it will help our reuse industry. So that's another thing. Unfortunately, our city commission isn't really that interested in incentives. They're interested in policy, and they want to get it passed. So if there wasn't input from us, they would just pass policy and not really worry about the educational side of it or the incentive side of it. So we remind them that every policy needs a corresponding educational program. So they have heard that so many times that they think that they've will actually do that this year. So that the city has set aside some funds to create education for this upcoming zero waste ordinance. So it hasn't happened yet, but this is much more than we've ever got out of our city staff and city commission. At least they're saying that they put some money aside for education to go along with this policy. And we have even suggested, not necessarily, it's kind of incentive, but it's not exactly, but these food generating businesses, so the restaurants, we've suggested some sort of system where if they're like early adopters of composting or early adopters of donating their food, that they should have some sort of decal or recognition, because a lot of people in Gainesville will go to those restaurants or those businesses if they know that they're doing the right thing. So we've suggested that to the city, that they incorporate that in this phase-in process with their ordinance. We don't know if it will happen, but that's been one suggestion from us.
Yeah, that is great. And I have a follow-up question for Amanda, but before that, I would like to point out a comment in the chat box. So Dr. Kamal is here with us, and he represents the Sulabh and West organization in India, and I did a class with them on waste management while I was in India. So he has been asking if I know people who will be interested in doing a joint study with their organization in India. So it is for all of the participants and our speakers. In case you think you would be interested in a joint study, please reach out to him. And now the follow-up question for Amanda. I know a lot of work needs to be done for the zero waste ordinance to be passed. I am interested in knowing, like, what are some of the challenges that you have faced from the side of the municipality or like the city officials in getting it passed? Like, are they supportive, or are there some things which they don't agree with?
The stuff in this ordinance that's coming up, there are 4 out of 7 of our city commission, so they're the elected officials. They have been crafting this, or at least they've been giving input after our city lawyer and city staff really actually craft the specific language. So that core team of our city attorney, the city staff that's in the public works department, and these 4 city commissioners have all been pretty much on board with everything in the ordinance. Sometimes they go back and forth on the enforcement date or the phase-in dates, but other than that, they're all on board. So we haven't had any opposition with city staff. In fact, we have a woman who works in strategic initiatives for the city of Gainesville, and she works on food sustainability systems citywide. So not necessarily on waste reduction at all, but sustainable food systems. So she heard that this was coming on board, and she asked to be involved because it does overlap with the work she does. So we haven't had opposition with city staff. And in fact, we've had more collaboration than we realized we would have in the beginning. We have had some opposition. So in Florida, we have a lot of opposition from the Florida Retail Federation and the Florida Restaurant Association. That might also happen in other states, I'm not sure, but they worry and dislike regulations to the retail, meaning stores that sell stuff, and the restaurants, which of course would have to figure out composting systems and follow these new regulations. So we've heard a little bit from them, not as much as we thought we would, no.
You know, let me throw something in. When we took the mandatory ordinance in San Diego, we had mostly the resistance was from the staff who didn't understand because they hadn't been trained in zero waste or even resource management. They were typical administrators of contracts. And so when we finally forced it to the mayor, he said, you know, am I going to get reelected if that happens? And we said, yeah, we think so. Why don't you ask the stakeholders, the hospitality industry, the garbage industry, and the restaurant association, what they think. And so I had a big meeting, and he got the garbage haulers up, and they said, well, yeah, if it's mandatory, then we can all charge for the service at a rate that's equal. Today, it's all over the place, and people know what to do. We'd appreciate if you would regulate that part of it. When they got up to the restaurant industry, he said, oh, the bars and restaurants, I have my customers want us to recycle, and I can't get the service from the haulers. Well, finally, when the hospitality industry got up there and said, yeah, same thing with our apartment owners. They want the service. we can't find it out there from the hauler. So yeah, could you do it? So when Mayor Sanders looked at us, we said, nah, we don't have anything to say at all. We're not going to jeopardize. We got a roll going here. And they took it to the council, got a 9-0 vote. Have never got a split vote on a zero waste plan. The problem is always, and this is Oceanside, this is Austin, Texas, this is Boston, Massachusetts, for crying out loud. It's the fact that the staff there's no training program. This is where you are, the young professionals, the new professors. There aren't any training programs in resource management. You take a degree in sustainability and they tell you about energy, may cover water a little bit, know nothing about resources. And so staff are not prepared for the changes that have to be made. And so my biggest plea now is that we get the universities to, I want somebody to endow a chair in the sustainability department that's going to talk about managing resources. But no, it's not here's the deal. Most politicians are loyal to those who support him. The biggest donators and local politicians are the local haulers. Why not? You got a monopoly on something that in Carlsbad, what, 100,000, it's $500 million. That's a huge business. So they're loyal. So they listen to them. If there isn't an organized community out there saying, well, wait a minute, this is the way it ought to be done, there is no balance. And the staff always takes a neutral position because you don't go against your council. There goes your job. So that's why it's important to be out there organizing so that the politician, and that's in Sicily, we went around to all the different cities and we told them the zero waste approach. And then later on, Paulo called me and said, I talked to the governor of Sicily and I said, wow. And what did he say? He said, well, I showed him the PowerPoint. I said, okay. He said, you're doing a good thing because now you're a balance from the mafia or the group that wants to build incinerators and those who want. So I can get back in the middle where a politician should be. Just to say, so that's our job, is to build this framework for this new cultural change that's got to happen.
Great. I am going to ask one last question, and I know there are a lot of other questions. So I request the participants to reach out to our speakers, and maybe you can post your emails in the chat. So my last question would be, going zero waste, especially if we say on a national level, what do you think are some of the main barriers that a country like US faces, and what are some of the barriers that a country like India, Pakistan, or other developing countries would face, and how do you think those could be addressed? Because I think there will be different barriers because both of them are different demographics. So I would like to get some input on that.
I think going on a national level, I think you have to have a national campaign and you have to protect the environment. But I'll tell you, garbage is a local issue. It has always been everywhere. The national may set standards, but in some countries they change prime ministers every year. How can they enforce the standards? So they lay them over to the counties who set up general regulations, but it's up to the locals to deal with it. So that's one of the things. But if you go local and you get good programs, and other local groups see that and they grow, and that's how you get the county and the nation on board. It takes a lot. I'll just say, where I say California is way in the lead, we're not Mississippi or Alabama. That's all part of the USA. So USA, we're at 50%, 40% in California. The USA as a whole is at 30%. And a lot of it are lobbyists in Washington who won't let this ever get on the table. However, this year in the United States with the recycling is investment, with the investment bill that got passed, we'll see a lot of infrastructure being built to help do it. And EPA has adopted zero waste now as a cultural platform. So we're winning, but you start locally and you yell upstream what you got to do, but it's got to happen locally first. That's my take. What do you think, Amanda?
Yeah, I think that was great, Rick. I think that a lot of the barriers are infrastructure, and just the fact, at least in the United States, so much of our day-to-day lives have just become disposable. There's so much disposability around us. It's so easy to dispose of stuff like cheap clothing and packaging. And we constantly get a message that we need to buy new things to keep up, or we need this or that. So that's a lot of the stuff, at least we're bombarded with here in the US, unfortunately. I think on the national level, if they did create more of a leadership position where they did have programs where the states and local municipalities could get some money for some of these programs, because Rick's right, waste is a local thing. We need to handle our discarded materials as locally as possible. And the communities, the cities and counties have the policies and create the agreements with the haulers and have the community groups. So we need to figure it out locally. But if on a national level, we had the support with helping with the messaging and the marketing and the funding, I think that that would make a big difference. But right now, even if we wanted to get all the organics out, capture all of the durable reusable items, I mean, we don't have enough places to organize that or to process that. So we would need the scaling up of infrastructure over time, which I think is happening. I mean, I know we're doing it here locally, so it is happening, but that'll take a little bit of time. And I don't have as much experience international, so I don't know if I can weigh in on other countries.
Well, the market demand is going to drive the locals, and what you'll see is, like you see all over the third world, there's little guys with shops buying discards from locals, and the waste pickers are out there in the street gathering the stuff and selling it. So that market's going to grow for sure. And you know, what I wanted to say is that in 1968, they passed 2 zero waste acts in the United States of America. The Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act say you cannot violate the air or the water of the United States. And then they set up, you know, how you can regulate it, and they gave you variables. So that's why we go for 90% for zero waste.
Great. I know I said I had one last question, but there have been a lot of questions around organics. So the question that Rahul posted, I want to bring it up, and he wants to know what is the feasibility. And again, it's like an international question, so I'm not really sure if you will have answer, but I will put it there. So what is the feasibility of installing a biogas plant in a country like Pakistan or India to tackle organic waste, because they generate a lot of.
I think you're going to need. So a biogas plant to me talks about you're looking for energy extraction, and what you do is you get most of the nitrogen out in terms of the methane, and then what's left is kind of an inert digestate. If you really want to make it work, what you do is you get the edible food, and you feed the homeless, and then you capture your organics and you windrow compost it outside. And Pakistan, I know you have lots of open space that you can do that, and then you feed the farmers that kind of soil. Now I agree with you. There are stuff like offal, meat packing plants, or whatever that creates stuff that you don't want to compost. In Britain, if it's that kind of material, it's got to be in a vessel. So I'd say an aerobic digester is a better take, because you're going to get a better digestate that you can use. And then the last take would be the anaerobic digester. But if you go the back way and you say, well, I want energy out of it, what you're doing is you're going to waste some resources by doing that. And your digestate is not as good as it could have been if it was aerobic.
Great. This is great. And I think we are almost up on time, and I would advise our participants to reach out to our speakers for any other questions they have or any discussions they want to do. And I would like to thank Amanda and Richard for taking the time to joining us. This has been really informative, and I believe whatever projects you're taking. I hope you get success in those. And thank you for
Thank you.
joining today.
Thanks.
Thank you. Get involved in SWM.org or if you want to help, if you want to get in the international movement.
Did you vote?
Ronald, do you have any last comments?
Yeah,